In this Marvel's Midnight Suns hero video, we're going to be taking a look at Captain America, who is a tank damage dealer in this game. He is effectively the second tank that you'll obtain. And in this video, I just kind of want to run you through the cards that you're going to use, the style of play that's available to him, and how he differentiates from Captain Marvel or Wolverine in terms of his tanking style. Captain America is somewhat similar to Captain Marvel in the sense that they both build up their block and taunt enemies and then absorb that damage with their block. And in fact, Captain America has a passive called All Day that allows him to begin combat with block. So he's already going to have some block built up when he begins combat, which is going to allow him to absorb damage right out of the gate. Now, the way that Captain America is different from Captain Marvel is that he has less of a focus on himself. Whereas Captain Marvel is focusing on drawing her cards in order to build up her Go Binary ability, Captain America focuses on drawing cards. Not specifically his cards, even though he does have abilities that can draw his cards. He has lots of abilities that allow him to draw cards in general, which benefit his entire team. So not only is he going to draw cards for himself with some of these cards, but he's also going to draw cards for your other characters. For instance, if you're using Iron Man, who's also a very Iron Man-centric character, meaning he needs lots of his own cards, this style of drawing can augment that because some of those cards you'll draw will inevitably be Iron Man cards, which helps benefit Iron Man by him being your tank, as opposed to Captain Marvel, who kind of competes with Iron Man because both those characters need to play their own cards. What this means is that Captain America fits better into a group than Captain Marvel does, because when Captain Marvel's in a group, she effectively needs to use all the cards. So if you want a tank that's going to tank but not necessarily use all the plays every turn, like maybe they have Iron Man in their group and you want to feed Iron Man cards, or maybe they have just other characters in your group that you want to play their abilities, Captain America works better in that sense than Captain Marvel, because he's just going to draw all these cards that anyone can use. So let's move on to some of the abilities of Captain America showcasing this card draw. The first ability we're going to take a look at is Tactician. This is an ability to begin the game with, and it makes it so that you gain block, which will prevent damage, and also draw 2 cards. Again, any cards, not his cards, so these can be from other classes as well, which is great. And when you upgrade it, it provides block for your allies so that they're protected, which is also nice, and you also gain heroism by using it, so you can build up to use powerful cards while you draw cards, which is great. And once you upgrade the modifiers of this, you can actually increase it to give you even more heroism, making it possible to play more powerful cards right after this. The next ability we're going to look at is Spang. This is a heroic ability, meaning that it costs heroism. In this case, it costs 1 heroism, which isn't very much at all. Very cheap for a heroic ability. And what this does is allows Captain Marvel to throw a shield at an enemy, and it deals very high damage, and even more damage if they're targeting him. And once you've upgraded this ability, if you KO that enemy, you draw 2 cards. And again, these are just 2 cards, not 2 Captain America cards. So this sort of plays into that card feeding technique that we were saying, where he's going to use all these cards that are going to help card draw for his team. And the next card we're going to take a look at here is Brooklyn Handshake. This is an attack card that provides you with heroism. It also knocks the target back. And if they've been damaged this turn, then it knocks them back forcefully, allowing them to fly even further and take even more damage, which is great. But once you upgrade it, it allows you to draw 2 cards when you kill an enemy. So again, this is 2 cards that are for anyone, not 2 cards for him. So you're seeing a pattern here between Spang and Brooklyn Handshake. And Tactician, you're getting a lot of card draw for your team. And one thing that's particularly excellent about this, besides the fact that it builds heroism, is that when you are able to apply modifiers to it, you can actually apply quick to it, meaning that you'll get the card play back if you defeat an enemy with it. And the damage on it is not bad at all. It's higher than like a Quick Punch or something like that. So I've actually replaced Quick Punch here with this, and this has effectively become my Quick Punch because I have Quick on it, and then I gain 2 cards when I KO an enemy with it. So it's absolutely fantastic. And the last ability I have here is Shield Bounce. This is another heroic ability that costs 2 heroism. Again, not very much at all. This hits in a huge AoE for a good amount of damage, allowing you to wipe out a lot of targets in one throw. And if you don't wipe them out, then they're taunted. And once this is upgraded, it also applies weak, meaning they're going to deal less damage to you, which is great because Captain America, the way we have him set up here, doesn't have a ton of block. The more friendly you are with him and the higher friendship ranking you have, the more you're going to start with at the beginning of combat, which is great. And if you can play Tactician, you're going to gain a good amount of block. But otherwise, from the abilities I have, he doesn't have any way to gain more block. So this is more of a DPS hybrid than like a super tank build that we're doing with Captain America. And what I really like about it is it allows him to deal a decent amount of damage between Brooklyn Handshake, Spang, and Shield Bounce. It allows him to feed cards for his team with all the card draw, and it allows him to taunt in a big AoE, taking some pressure off his teammates, while also dealing a lot of damage that might wipe out enemies, preventing a lot of damage he'll take. So you can definitely set up Captain America to do more tanking, you know, have more abilities that taunt and give him more block, like Dig In, for instance, is a great way to gang more block and to taunt a bunch of enemies. And you can certainly swap out something like Spang for that, or Brooklyn Handshake, if you want to go more of a tankier route. But if you kind of want a nice blend of support, DPS, and tanking, this is a really great way to set it up. And I also want to mention that you probably won't have all these cards at the beginning. Quick Punch is not a bad substitute for Brooklyn Handshake early on, because you do draw a card when you use it if you have it upgraded. So make sure you hang on to your Quick Punches and that you're using them before you get Brooklyn Handshake, because that's a nice alternative to that. And as I mentioned a bit earlier, Captain America is not a self-focused character the way Iron Man and Captain Marvel are. He doesn't need to play his own cards. So using characters in your party to feed him cards isn't as useful as it is for those characters, because feeding him cards effectively means that you're feeding card draw to feed card draw. He is the card draw, so he makes a better sort of support tank DPS in that role. If you need support, he's a very good support. He doesn't boost the damage of other characters and give them other bonuses and things like that, so he's not going to support them in that way, but he will support them by allowing them to draw their cards and play their cards and preventing them from getting damage. And while I suggest somebody like Doctor Strange to party with in a lot of cases, because he not only buffs the damage of their attacks, and he pulls back some of their cards from the used pile of previous attacks so they can use those attacks again, Captain America doesn't really need that in this case. Obviously, it's great if he gets his damage buff, but he's not so much of a damage dealer that you're really worried about buffing his damage specifically. Obviously, shield bounce, because it hits in an AoE, is nice when it's buffed, like the way Iron Man's air superiority is buffed. You know, when it gets buffed, it's great because it hits everything on the screen, and that's nice, and it's definitely helpful, but it's not as necessary as some of these other classes because he has so much card draw. He doesn't need these other classes like Nico to help support that. There is one really great card, though, that if you want to make him sort of more focused on himself, and that is the Best Defense. This provides him with block equal to the damage he deals for 2 turns, and you draw 2 Captain American cards, and you gain heroism from playing this card. So this is really good to boost your heroism, give you 2 Captain America cards that he can then use, and then he gains block from them, ideally if they're damage dealing like Spang or Shield Bounce or something like that. That is a really good card if you want to make him more prioritized on himself. If you want to make him the star of the show, then you'll put that in your deck. But I feel like the strength, again, with him is that he doesn't have to play that way, whereas those other characters like Iron Man and Captain Marvel really have to play that way. So you can add that there if you want to make him more self-focused, but I prefer not to play that way. So that wraps up our Captain America hero video. He's a really fun tank to play. He fits in with almost any group because of the way he draws cards, and you can make, you know, your party revolve around him if you add the Best Defense, or you can leave it out and just use regular card draw, which is what I prefer to do. And there are just a lot of different ways you can play him, but he deals good damage, he's a good tank, and he's just a great character to bring along in general. What are your thoughts on our Captain America guide? Did I miss anything? Are there any other tips for other players? Let us know in the comments below.